What's up, everybody? 5 months, 500 subscribers. How did this happen? I just wanted to get on here and kind of walk through this journey of where I've come from on YouTube in this space, this little corner of the internet, and where I'm going, and answer some questions like that have just are going to help me process where I'm at, where I've come from, where I'm at, and where I'm going with this. Because I don't want it to just be arbitrary. I don't want it to be aimless. I want it to be purposeful and be good for myself, for my life, my relationships, and for you, and for people that are connecting and watching, consuming, engaging, responding to me, to my life, and how I relate to other relationships here on the internet, specifically YouTube and kind of on X. How did this happen? Jordan Peterson, Jonathan Peugeot, and Paul Vanderklay are the main reasons that this is happening. You could sprinkle in a little bit of John Vervaeke as the seeds planted, and then the water would have to have been, well, time, but then the fertilizer or the accelerant would be Paul, and specifically in Paul Vanderklay's relationships on YouTube would be Chad from the Friday Morning Nameless and Grim Grizz. When I first made my first video 5 months ago on January 6th, I was mainly responding to the big people and their effect on me that I mentioned earlier, Jonathan Peugeot and Jordan Peterson and Paul Vanderklay. And it was because I had seen one live stream from Paul. I'd never seen one, even though I'd followed Paul since on and off since 2017, just mainly his engagements with Jordan Peterson. When I saw that, it triggered something inside of me relationally that coincided with also relationships in my embodied life related to the conversation of meaning, remaking meaning, rebuilding meaning in my own life, and helping some other people that I have relationships with in my embodied life as well. When I made that first video, I'm pretty sure, because it did like 500 views basically overnight, which it's not really viral, but to me, that was very viral considering I'd put some music up on YouTube like the previous year and never really messed with YouTube before that. That kind of blew my mind, and I think it was probably because it was shared on like Grim Grizz's Discord, and because Chad, I know people started commenting that were in the corner, people that I've since had some engagements with, and that were encouraged or were encouraging me for sharing parts of my story, and it gained a little bit of traction, and so obviously that was a big dopamine hit and unexpected, but it also showed me that there was a community. And so that's why I dropped into it. And there was a comment on that first video like, Chad, have him on. You should have him on. And I did see Chad and later comment, and he dropped his email and we engaged. And a few weeks, like 2 weeks later, I did a podcast with Chad. And then I started making videos. It was like I was on the phone today with Graham Pardun, who I've had on my podcast, who is a writer on Substack and a published author, a book about orthodoxy on Martin Shaw's uh, publishing house that he runs. And I was saying that it felt like this was like an exhale, like I'd been breathing in, breathing in, breathing in, and then getting onto YouTube was like exhaling, and it was a bit euphoric. And some of my early videos were just me, just like telling these stories, and I even had just some kind of a lot of things rose up out of my subconscious through that. So that was this journey, and people began to engage. It was a lot of fun and encouraging as well, and therapeutic, honestly. So that is how this happened. The second piece of it, during that kind of hyper intense beginnings, I bought a ticket for the Symbolic World, and just as kind of like following some kind of thread in this to further connect to this world that I've said that kind of existed in my head for about 7 years. And in that process, I met Grim and Paul, and some of my early videos, Grim and some of his crew would clipped it and he highlighted it on his video and tagged me in it. And Chad did the same thing. And then Paul Vanderklay took those up on his channel. That all happened very fast. So I got some notoriety. Paul did a speed rando with me. And that process, again, very overwhelming and exciting, like truly exciting to connect, especially with Paul, who had engaged in this space for a long time, that I connected really closely to the influence and impact that Jordan Peterson had had on me. So that was extremely meaningful. So when I went to Symbolic World, like I said, I met Grim, and then Paul like sent me a link to his Friday morning live stream, and I did a kind of a news report, and that was extremely fun. And then even at Symbolic World, some people recognized me from this corner of the internet. I met Nate Heil from Grail Country. I met Jordan Hall, who I had this other weird YouTube encounter with. So much happened so quickly. And then Jordan Peterson ended up being a surprise guest there. And I took a clip of him the first time that he walked on stage. And then I pushed it up to YouTube. And it was a little bit kind of bootleg because all that's behind Jonathan's Symbolic World paywall. But what that actually did, I was about 150 subscribers. In a few days, it doubled my subscriber count almost like by another 150. And so that was something that was, and it had like 55,000 views. And I ended up taking it down because it wasn't really my content to share. And from Paul's advice, from somebody in the comments critiquing me for that, and then also conversations with my wife about it, and because Grim also, what did he do? He kind of called me out about it as well. So that was how this happened. And since then, I started podcasting, doing podcast conversations very regularly because I had a month off of work and I just started filling my time. And so that is how this happened. 500 subscribers in 5 months. And people began to tune in and be encouraged by the podcasts. Started playing a lot or some on Grail Country and conversations and on some of Paul's Vanderklay's live streams. So what am I doing? I'm seeking connection, like so many people out here that are doing this in this space. And I think I'm honestly seeking notoriety. I think I'm seeking personal affirmation. I think I'm seeking attention. I think I'm seeking friendship. I think I am seeking relational and even a type of professional networking. I also am seeking to help people. I think my first conversation, or one of the first conversation, I felt like I was, and I don't want this to be patronizing if you're listening, but like my conversation with Edge of Thought, my first conversation with Matthew Parlato, I felt like I was being helpful to them relationally. And I don't want that to, again, to sound patronizing to either of those individuals, because Matthew and I have developed a friendship. And in my conversation with Edge of Thought, it felt like this whole idea of thinking out loud, like giving people who, again, relating to having a conversation kind of in your head for many years, that felt good to feel like I think I was helping people. And I began to kind of make prayers, like a liturgical prayer, before my podcasts about that. What am I doing? I'm hoping to meet interesting people and even kind of famous people. I think there's a implicit and explicit, more implicit, hoping to gain status. I think that is a reality. And I'm also trying to push against that as well, by not making that the sole or the foundational priority, but just acknowledging that shadow. And then at the 500 mark that we're at, I actually am hoping to be able to generate some amount of financial return on the investment, to be able to use a little bit to make, my goal is to buy another camera so that I actually want to do more podcasting locally. And I want to be able to have another camera shot so I could do like a 1:2 or 1:1 2-shot here in my studio. So that's what I'm doing. Who is this for? I think this is for me, primarily, probably. but I also think it's for you, people watching. I think that it is a complete that this type of medium is a symbiotic medium. You don't want to do this if nobody's watching. It becomes, well, it feels meaningless or pointless. And so the meaning is in the relationship between myself and the viewer and the participant in that conversation and the people that I get to have digital conversation with. So this is for me, this is for you. I also think that this is for people in my embodied life that are listening in on these conversations. There's people that live here in my town that have started listening to the podcasts and started listening to some of my other videos. And I think I'm being better understood as a person as a result of that. Parts of me that I've not had real life conversations with, and then we're having like a little disjointed conversation, and then there's synchronicity, and then like that. And so it's for people in my real life or my embodied life, as I should say, because I still also feel like this is part of my real life because I'm really doing this. So this is for people I know and for people I don't know. This is for a continued process in my life of thinking out loud about deeply meaningful things. So what am I doing, or how do I do what I am doing? I use a camera that can go up to 4K. It's the cheapest one, and even though this is actually in 1080p, because StreamYard only records up to 1080p, and StreamYard makes it really easy to do recordings and to do a little bit of branding and it plays very well with YouTube. So it's kind of cloud based, so I don't have to just download. If I'm not trying to edit, which I am actively don't try to edit that much, it takes up a lot more time. Actually, since my conversation with a guy named Will Preble, who is an AI consultant, I have actually been using AI to help me, Chat GPT, to help me with video titles and video descriptions, and also on my intros to my podcast to say, make this more readable, to help me read these things. When I typed it out and then I ask it to make it more readable, that's what I'm doing. I also use it to scan like my long hour and a half, 2 hour conversations and say, what are some meaningful sections of this? So then I take those timestamps and I clip those, because it's very hard to do that, to just be like, I think this is the moment, where should I start? And it's hard to do that on evaluating something that you're doing. And yeah, I don't know if it's working or if I'm picking the best spots, but it gives me like 5 different options. And then I look at their synopsis of those options and I say, okay, I think that so I'm using AI to help me do that. StreamYard has a function that it'll make AI generated clips. You may have seen Grim Grizz do some of this, and I've used some of those that I think maybe are interesting or appropriate. Instead of trying to go through and clip a section out of 2 hours worth of information, it's just offering some up that I can choose from. So, we could call that lazy, but we could also call that efficiency. And I don't know, or you could call that not authentic, but I don't know what the argument is on that. StreamYard really allows for a low friction relationship with YouTube, and if you're not trying to do the most interesting video cuts and everything. So just one take, what I'm doing. So where am I going? I kind of want to go smaller, even though the channel is getting a little bigger. At 500 subscribers on YouTube, you can unlock. It makes it they kind of gamify it. You can unlock channel memberships. I do want to do that because I'm going to try to connect more intentionally. I'm already feeling, and it's funny because you get to this Dunbar number of email interactions or Twitter DMs or relationally, like trying to keep up. I'm feeling like I'm coming to like a limit on that, honestly, for one individual trying to do this. And instead of just seeking growth for the sake of growth, with memberships, I can relate to people that might more specifically want to relate to me more intentionally. And I haven't completely outlined like a structure for this. I'm wanting to do maybe like a once a month members meetup on my channel for a directed conversation. And then that would either, I don't know if that would be something that then would be pushed out or stay behind the membership section, or I haven't really thought through it completely, but just that I am interested in niching down relationally. And I think that is a way to do that. But also, if you want to support creating a space like that for relationship that is more, could be more private, in how YouTube does this really good job of connecting people through its algorithm. I'm wanting to see if that makes sense. And again, in hopes that maybe a little bit of money over time, over that, say, the next 6, 9 months, 12 months, could possibly help me buy another camera. So that is one place I want to go. Where am I going with the conversation, with conversation craft? In that space, I think something kind of ecumenical, something that is encouraging people in their embodied lives how to practically, in like maybe their churches or their relationships, incorporate more historical practice into evangelicalism specifically, or encouraging people within their Protestant spaces to seek and encourage their Protestant leaders to live up to, or the ideals or the confessions of their values, instead of just wanting to only go after growth like the evangelical spaces seem to have done for a very long time now. Something about that conversation. Yeah. Like a long-term vision to help bring culture near and far into better human and spiritual alignment with Christian ethos and philosophy. So come join me if you think that makes sense. Let's niche down on building small, effective conversations, these nodes, to reclaim and rekindle trust that has been broken from the places, like the institutions and the structures that or the people that we put that in, that didn't value it. That's what I'm wanting to do. So this is all I have to say on this front. Kind of a plan, kind of not a plan, but kind of uh, working towards more specificity, more intentionality, giving more attention to that. So thanks for hanging out.